Hello, welcome back to our course. This is the fourth and final module. After examining the quality of life and positive aging, we find that we also have to understand the quality of death. In this module, we will talk about the essence of achieving a good life and death positively. Previously, we introduced the concept of optimum health and quality of life. You may have a general idea about how to achieve wellness. We discussed both personal and societal roles in health issues to see the interaction between the citizen and the government. Throughout their whole lives, individuals have to face critical life challenges and learn how to cope with them and grow from the process. With this final topic, we would like to understand the essence in achieving a good life and death positively.
When talking about health and wellness, we always evaluate our physical condition, or we check our psychological state and what kind of emotions we are experiencing. However, we sometimes neglect the spiritual power and the meaning of life. Those always stay inside our mind. Harry Moody said, "Awareness of a meaning that transcended individual life is a universal human quality. Transcendence and the search for meaning were what make us human." This sentence encourages us to look deep into what our meaning of life is. Meaning of life refers to the worldviews and the personal internal model, such as his or her moral development, values, and faith. Having purpose and meaning in life is quite essential for human beings. It contributes to optimal human development through improved resiliency, increased levels of happiness, and human flourishing. When studying the meaning systems, we need to look beyond the observable behavior, which may go beyond the standardized questionnaire techniques. Open-ended interview techniques or individual case studies are also adopted. Recently, it is found that spirituality can influence the individual's perception of the meaning of life. Spirituality helps us experience inner peace and unify interconnectedness with a higher power that provides meaning and purpose in life. It also contributes to positive health outcomes. It gives supportive strength to us to face the challenges in life. Furthermore, spirituality increases people's happiness, excitement with life, self-esteem, and optimism. In Hong Kong, most of us are familiar with the Lion Rock spirit. It is believed to be the core values that are inherited by Hong Kong people from generations to generations. Cultivated from a popular drama series Below the Lion Rock in 1973, it represents Hong Kong people's perseverance and solidarity. These characteristics support the citizens to work hard and rebuild Hong Kong after World War II collectively. Nowadays, the rise of modernized Lion Rock spirit expresses socio-political aspirations of Hong Kong people for democracy, social equality, and justice. Discussion. What is your understanding of the Lion Rock spirit? Do you think it still represents Hong Kong spirit now? After the discussion, you can see how the citizens think of these two questions. Have you ever thought about what is the most important in your life? How do these elements consist of your meaning of life? Kohlberg considered that the items were not stably crucial to an individual at all times. Instead, it evolves and changes over different life stages. The belief behind determines how people think about what is right and wrong. This decision as moral reasoning is highly related to the meaning of life. Kohlberg studied how individuals make moral reasoning. He presented hypothetical dilemmas and found that there were 3 levels of moral reasoning. The first level is the pre-conventional level. The pre-conventional level of moral reasoning is especially common in children, although adults can also exhibit this level of reasoning. Reasoners at this level judge the morality of an action by its direct consequences. Throughout the pre-conventional level, the sense of morality is externally controlled, for example, accepting and believing the rules of authority. The individual focuses on the desire to obey rules and avoidance of being punished. Also, moral reasoning is limited to their interests. At the conventional level, individuals judge the morality of actions by comparing to the society's views and expectations. Conventional morality is characterized by an acceptance of society's conventions concerning right and wrong. At this level, an individual obeys rules and follows society's norms even when there are no consequences for obedience or disobedience. At the post-conventional level, individuals take precedence over society's view, and an individual may disobey rules inconsistent with their principles. They have their ethical principles, including basic human rights, life, liberty, and justice. In Lawrence Kohlberg's view, moral development consists of the growth of less egocentric and more impartial modes of reasoning on more complicated matters. What is faith? Faith is a set of assumptions or understanding about the nature of our connections with others and with the world in which we live. James Fowler in 1971 investigated and developed the stage theory for the development of religious faith. In practice, it is also applicable to other areas of general beliefs. Stage 1 is intuitive projective faith, ages of 3 to 7, characterized by the psyche's unprotected exposure to the unconscious, and marked by a relative fluidity of thought patterns. Religion is learned mainly through experiences, stories, images, and the people that one comes in contact with. Stage 2 is mythic literal faith, mostly in school children. Stage 2 persons have a strong belief in the justice and reciprocity of the universe, and their deities are almost always anthropomorphic. Stage 3 is synthetic conventional faith, arising in adolescence, age 12 to early adulthood. It is characterized by conformity to authority and the religious development of a personal identity. Any conflict with one's beliefs are ignored at this stage due to the fear of threat from inconsistencies. In stage 4, individuative reflective faith, usually mid-20s to late 30s. This stage is a stage of angst and struggle. The individual takes personal responsibility for his or her beliefs and feelings. As one is able to reflect on one's own beliefs, there is an openness to a new complexity of faith, but this also increases the awareness of conflicts in one's belief. Stage 5 is conjunctive faith and acknowledges paradox and transcendence relating reality behind the symbols of inherited systems. The individual resolves conflicts from previous stages by a complex understanding of a multidimensional, interdependent truth that cannot be explained by any particular statement. Stage 6 is universalizing faith, or what some might call enlightenment. The individual would treat any person with compassion as he or she views people from a universal community, and should be treated with universal principles of love and justice. Combining with and analyzing both Kohlberg's stages of moral reasoning development and Fowler's stages of faith development, the author summarized the morality and faith development into 4 general stages, including conformist, individuality, integration, and self-transcendence. Conformist means that individuals begin to view themselves and others as conforming to socially approved codes or norms. There is a right way and a wrong way, and it is the same for everyone, or broad classes of people. During the stage of individuality, persons demonstrate a respect for individuality and interpersonal ties. A person must become more tolerant of himself and of others with the recognition of individual differences and of complexities of circumstances. The individualistic ego has a broad-minded tolerance of, and respect for, the autonomy of oneself and others. The stage of integration describes that the ego exhibits wisdom, broad empathy towards oneself and others, and a capacity to be aware of inner conflicts or to tolerate them and make peace with them. The last stage is self-transcendence. Self-transcendence involves individuals conceiving themselves as an integral part of the universe as a whole. It is about moving beyond the physical and the ego, and knowing the inner spirit essence of life. It is about seeing the world from a universal perspective. At the heart of self-transcendence is a spiritual concept that looks at the true meaning of life and the infinite consciousness. How can we promote the transition between the stages and achieve self-transcendence in the end? It is recommended that both intentional and unintentional or circumstantial events may foster that transition. Some special life experiences may push us to get maturer and less egocentric, and have more understanding between the autonomy of self and others, such as the significant life challenges like attending college, marriage, job change, or even life crisis, the near-death experiences. Although most people may not experience such extreme situations, we may also learn through engaging in workshops and therapies to transform from one stage to another. For example, reading about other religions or faiths, attending short-term programs to heighten self-awareness. According to Wong and Frankel, the seeking for the meaning can help build up spiritual power. There are 3 levels of self-transcendence. The first level is seeking the ultimate meaning. At this level, the individuals can reach beyond their physical limitations. They can still live with dignity and maintain an attitude of freedom and responsibility for their happiness. The second level is seeking situational meaning. We can discover the meaning potential of each situation and reach beyond our mental and situational constraints and connect with our spiritual values. We need to relate to our immediate experience in an open, curious, and responsible way and ask, what is the right thing to do? The last level is seeking one's calling. A sense of calling straddles between ultimate meaning and situational meaning. We may reach beyond self-actualization and pursue a higher purpose for the greater good. For example, a person may have the desire to serve the poor and disadvantaged. When he learns about the opportunity to serve in a leper colony, he may accept this mission as his calling. It is an engagement in striving to achieve a concrete meaning in life, a life goal of contributing something of value to others. If we can cultivate all 3 levels of transcendence, we will develop a spiritual lifestyle that is good and healthy for individuals and society. Good death. Usually we focus more on the quality of life and what benefits our growth. However, we seldom consider how to achieve the quality of death. So what does it mean to have a good death? Good death is referred to helping the patients who are dying and their bereaved families. Reconstructing the meaning of death as good is an essential way of coping. Different cultures construct different definitions of good death. For example, in the Western context, good death includes 3 themes across all stakeholders, like the patient, family, and healthcare providers. A literature search found that the individual in English-speaking countries consider, first, treatment preference for the dying process were most important. Second, pain-free status, and third, emotional well-being. These thoughts emphasize on individual happiness. While in Hong Kong, a good death is not purely a personal matter, but also relevant to spiritual power and social relationships. Chan and her colleagues in 2006 found that good death covers many perspectives. From the perspective of terminally ill patients, good death is, first, to be aware of dying. Second, maintaining hope. Third, free from pain and suffering. Fourth, experiencing personal control. Fifth, maintaining social relationships. Sixth, preparing to depart. And seventh, accepting the timing of one's death. From the perspective of bereaved persons, the family has a core position in the definition of the good death. Other than having life accomplishments and having a good family are essential, presence of family members at the moment of death is important too. Let's see a local research by Chan et al. In 2006 about the perception of good death among the general public in Hong Kong. Among the public, good death is most often related to 1. Having no physical torture, 2. Being painless, and 3. Being independent. Do you agree or disagree with these items? What is your understanding of good death? Please share your view with your classmates in the discussion session. In Chinese culture, death and dying is acceptable worship with respect. People naturally accept death and suffering, and they believe that human has an afterlife. With the comparison between Eastern and Western studies, we may conclude that physical condition is the main factor for good health in the majority of Western populations. However, more tendency is on interdependence and psychosocial factors in Chinese culture. To prepare for a good death, both the individual and his family members both have to be psychologically prepared. We believe that no matter how good the death, it is still a significant loss for many bereaved persons. So to achieve good bereavement under significant other's death is quite necessary for those alive. Good bereavement refers to the combination of good death of a deceased person and the good life of a bereaved person. For those bereaved persons, they should reconstruct the meaning of life after the loss, adjust to change in daily life after the loss. In Chinese culture, death is a taboo that people are not willing to mention it in daily life because it may result in bad luck. For this reason, most of us have little understanding of the meaning of life and death and how to cope with the related issues. So nowadays, scholars and the public have raised awareness and begun life and death education. Core of life and death education. The core of life and death education is to unfold the fear of death, change the mystery of life and death from unknown to known. Besides, education would teach the public a positive way to face pitfalls and trauma. The public can also know, accept, and realize the limits in life and delicacy of human. Although we do not know where and how we will die, we can still determine our quality of life and subjective feelings toward life. And with the constant reflection and preparation, we can live and die well. Preparation for death. So how can we prepare for death? A traditional method for coping with death is avoidance. Previously, the concept of death was bad luck, opposite to living, and represents failure. It results in fearful and stubborn emotions, guilty and conflictual relationships, low and regretful self-esteem, loss and exhaustion in life, and accepting death unexpectedly and helplessly. It is a harmful and vicious circulation. A paradigm shift is occurring to guide us to cope with death. Through enriched preparation, we can have a good death. This paradigm we call 2 lives, 3 wills in Chinese. It includes the meaning of life and life review in the part of 2 lives. We should attach the meaning of life and death, including the values and religion. Life review refers to completing the life tasks in the stage and integrating his or her whole life. 3 wills are will, living will, and loving will. Wills are the arrangement and distribution of heritage and hangovers, organ donation, and funeral. The living will is that the individual can predict and decide their deathbed healthcare, including the treatment plan and healthcare agency. The last one is loving will. It is the emotional communication with the family and friends, treasuring the remaining time they spend together and spreading the motto and wisdom of life. This concept suggests that we should reconstruct the meaning of death, accepting it as a terminal station of the life journey. Coping methods can include life reviews and reconciliation. This coping method can allow peaceful and gratitude emotions, cherish and connected relationships, and appreciated self, allow life to continue to be enjoyable, and acceptance of death. Some of us have to work with people that are impending death. What can we do for these kind of people? And how can we impend the death properly? Death and its related incidents are highly fear-provoking, such as sudden death during the surgery, the uncertainty, and the loss. One of the greatest fears is being left alone and abandoned. Social isolation and loneliness are indeed significant problems. After we understand the fear of death, we should learn more about the reaction to impending death. Kubler found that there were 5 stages of dying. Initially, many people attempt to deny the fact that they have learned or to deny the meaning of those facts. A patient may be told that he is suffering a significantly severe illness. He felt shocked at the very beginning, but later on, he or she may ask the doctor when it will be possible to leave the hospital and go back to work. The patient denied the situation and thought it was simply a joke. Denial stems from tremendous anxiety and represents an attempt to keep the threatening facts from entering consciousness. Some patients become extremely angry when they receive a diagnosis of impending death, as they are overwhelmed by depression and fear of death. Such anger is a double-edged sword. The patients may be motivated to find a modern treatment for his or her condition and help themselves live longer. From the wrong side, the expression of anger may reduce the chance of social support to the patients because of the emotional instability. The anger allows the patient to move on to the next stage, bargaining. At this stage, some patients might engage in bargaining to survive. A patient volunteers to participate in a research project and serve as a subject to test a new drug or treatment, hoping to achieve a cure. Or the religious patient might promise to be a better person and live a perfect life if only given another chance. These thoughts and actions make the patient feel better emotionally, and they gradually come to understand the reality of the situation. Depression is a typical response and can occur immediately or after some delay. The depression may result from many failed efforts to change the illness. Depression involves giving up, however, and no longer fighting for survival. Instead, the patient lives any remaining time in satisfying and enjoyable ways, such as moving towards self-understanding and contacting others. The last stage is acceptance. Some patients accept the inevitability of death peacefully and strive to understand and come to the meaning of life. Buchman says bad news is any news that drastically and negatively alters the patient's view of his or her future. He also developed a 6-step protocol to guide the medical professional on how to break the bad news to those who are impending death. We can begin this process by carefully, in an appropriate setting, share the information with them. Find out how much the person already knows and how much the person wants to know. Knowing how much information the person wants to receive will guide you to inform them without overloading. This action provides the patients and their caregivers a sense of some control. It is quite challenging to believe the information totally when the bad news is happening. We need to respond to the person's feelings appropriately. For example, listening to their concerns conveys respect, and acknowledging that the news is difficult for them is also helpful. Then plan for the future and follow up. It should be approached with special preparation and sensitivity. The plan should involve people who can support the individual, like family members, significant others, or care workers who know the person well. Dying is not so horrible when we have a strategy to cope with it. Physically, we should satisfy bodily needs and minimize physical distress. Psychologically, to maximize their security, autonomy, and richness, let them live with dignity. Additionally, it is also helpful to enhance their interpersonal attachments and their social support from their social group. Lastly, we should be aware of the spiritual power, for example, helping the patient rediscover their meaning of life and their strengths. Discussion: the choice of dying at home in Hong Kong. About dying, there is a heated discussion about whether people should die in their own homes in Hong Kong. It is a significant challenge of end-of-life care. Until 2016, over 1 million older persons live in Hong Kong, and the proportion of older persons in the total population rose to 15.9% in 2016. The aging trends become faster in the past decade. While Hong Kong enjoys one of the longest life expectancies, it only ranked 22 among the world in the 2015 Quality of Death Index. Some local researchers pointed out that inappropriate admissions to hospital were common. Almost all older patients die in hospital, while seldom choose palliative care services. This choice contributes to several problems, such as inappropriate use of hospital services and unnecessary transportation. In Hong Kong, the barriers of dying at home are various, such as social taboo, lack of death education. Less than 3% of the patients participated in the home end-of-life care program. However, most elderly would like to stay at home even during the last period. Please see the reference on the next page and discuss the choice of dying at home.
In conclusion, we learned what may be meaningful in life through different life stages in testifying our moral reasoning and faith, and how these elements contribute to our well-being. We have looked at the quality of life and death and the exciting cultural differences on these issues. Life and death education could help us cherish more for what we have now and be braver to face the pitfalls and challenges in our daily life or even death. Hope you have a better understanding of health and wellness through these modules and enjoy optimum living. Bye-bye.